Okay, hey guys, thanks for joining me today for this retouch of the Airpusher photo shoot that we did. So this is going to be a narrated time-lapse where I'm going to talk about how I do what I do and what my thinking process is as I go through the retouching. This is the several hours of retouching compressed into just 15 minutes. I'm not going to spend much time talking about the tools that I use and the detailed instructions for how to use those tools, because you can learn them on Flurn or on Linda. So go ahead and check out those guys. We're going to jump right into it. Okay, so here we are. First, we're going to look through all of our layers and we're going to assemble them. So I just have it stacked in Photoshop and it's all coming in. And I'm just going to look through it real quick, find the pieces that I know that I want, and start putting them in. And here we are putting Captain Jaye, fixing his arm. And we have the couple who are dancing on top as well. And very quickly, I'm just going to put them all in because when I shot it, I had it in mind which couple was going to go where. This one I'm not sure I'm going to keep, but Faye's showing his nipple. But I don't think I'm going to keep that one, and later I will take them out. But for now, here's the left side couple who were dancing. Put them in. Okay, and we had a girl in the background, Anna, who we're going to take out. And so now looking for the center dancer. Cutting her out. Matching the background. Right now, this is fairly preliminary. I'm just kind of putting things in a little roughly. Sometimes instead of cutting things out, I'd rather paint them in, create soft edges, and plus there's motion blur in her hands. But the color in the background may not always match the shot, so I do use some curves adjustments to make the edges match. This shoot was done at dusk. We wanted to utilize the sunset, but time just wasn't on our side in this shoot. So as we shot, it got darker and darker and darker, and I had to put in lights to recreate some sun. But you know, it turned out to be a night shot, so I didn't really use it as a sun. I just used it as a highlight. Okay, so Faye here, I'm making room because on the bottom, I'm actually putting kissers. So I'm moving Faye to the top. Okay, cleaning up some background. So I'm looking for pieces in the background. One of the issues that I ran into is the boat is on wheels. The boat is actually an art car created by this Airpusher burningman group. So every time they moved on the boat, nothing lined up. So that created some additional difficulties. And we're just cleaning him up, cleaning up the background. The initial putting in of everybody is I'm just blocking it all in to make sure that everything fits, that the arms are not overlapping each other's heads, so on and so forth. Here he was holding a riding crop, so making sure that that shows up. Doing some cleaning, and there are some lanterns that weren't as bright as others, so fixing that as well. Okay, working on Faye over here and cleaning up the background. This was a very beautiful airship that this Burning Man group had created, and I'd been for probably 8 months trying to schedule a shoot with them. And they are a steampunk group, and so just very beautiful people with beautiful costume, and so really fun to shoot them. They all came up with their own costumes, and it was a very collaborative process, which I enjoyed tremendously. Okay, so cutting Monica out there and putting her in. We had a guy with a CO2 cannon in the background there, and he was providing some of the special effects that you see in the shots, the smoke, and then we'll also be putting in additional smoke. And Jaye adding shadows to Jaye there to make him look more real. The beautiful chandelier hanging off the bow of the ship, unfortunately we weren't able to keep that, and so you'll see that I take that out later. Okay, I think now I'm just looking for background pieces to make it more clean. Cleaning everything up, making sure all of my outlines look good. The overall shoot took probably about 3 hours. We were kind of concepting on the fly, so for the better part of the first portion of the shoot, we were just trying to figure out what we were going to do. But I'm very happy with the results and how it came out. So, patching in some smoke. Of course, if you're using smoke in a scene, while you're shooting it, you might want to have some, but it's difficult to control. So I basically I knew that I needed to do some smoke adding in the post process. So here we are doing that. Okay, refining edges. We're going to be doing a lot of refining of edges. We're going to be going back and forth and refining edges, and on all of our beautiful girls up front we're going to do dodge and burning on their face and on their skin, making sure everything looks... This is a fantasy photo, so it doesn't, I'm not concerned about it being a little artificial looking, but at the same time, just as my own aesthetic sensibilities, I do tend to try and make things look as real as possible. Alright, checking my layers, grouping them up, cleaning them up. This file ended up being over 3 gigs in size, and it was a little bit difficult to manage in Photoshop. Let's see here. So adding some smoke into the background to help everything blend in nicely. This is the initial pass, and later on you'll see that I actually showed the image to a couple of people and we ended up making some more changes, so you can see that process as well. Okay, fixing her corset, making it match, fit a little bit better, adjusting some of the colors. So because this was shot at night, we had a bunch of mixed lighting happening. We had a huge LED panel coming off of a bus. It was another art car, and it was one side of it was completely covered in LEDs, and we just had left that on. But sometimes the colors would shift through green, purple, reds, blues, that kind of thing. So sometimes we got some off colors, which then I have to clean up. And the color stuff I just do with, hue saturation, color adjustments, that kind of thing. Okay, taking out some background distractions here. We did shoot this more or less in kind of it's kind of a junkyard setting, but it was a Burning Man artist warehouse. So we did a lot to kind of avoid showing the junkyard sides of it, but we did want to leave some of it. But when it's crossing over the head, it's a little too much. Adding flare, of course, for some extra interest. The background I wanted to separate out from the foreground, so I'm adding in a little bit of created smoke feeling to kind of make the background have a haziness that can separate out from the foreground. Here we are, and we're fixing her face a little bit. It was shot, I think, at 800 ISO, so You can see the graininess, but I don't mind it so much. I think for a party picture, it's fun to have a little grain. Makes it a little more real. I don't particularly like an HDR'd or plasticky look, so here I am just doing some dodging and burning on a couple of areas to make sure everybody looks great. Of course, our CO2 cannon guy, can't forget him. Wanted to darken the background around the hat to give the hat some highlight. It's an easier read. There goes the chandelier. Cleaning up that distraction there. Okay, and that's pretty much it for that. But then, after some film review, we did decide to make some changes. So, let's see what we ended up doing. So, the first middle dancer we didn't like so much. Her pose wasn't perfect. And then there was Anne on the very far right of the picture. Her arm was in front of the saxophone player's face, so we wanted to find one where her arm isn't overlapping Johann. But the problem was that original picture was the two of them together. So now I have to recreate Johann, because I actually like his pose there, by finding pieces to recreate his hat, the side of his face, his arm, his jacket, all of that, because Anne was in front of him. And the smoke behind his head, we're gonna have to recreate. Took a couple of different tries. I tried a few different faces, and you see this polygon thing? That's a puppet warp. It's pretty good for a quick and dirty way of matching up two images that don't fit together. Of course, the fur on Anne's collar there is a little bit difficult to do the edge on. And for recreating the fog, I just created a spray brush. Then I used that to paint in the fog, just for that little piece between his hat and the rest of it. Okay, now going through the film again to look for a good dancing of Clarissa in the middle. Okay. And the thing is, I actually liked her legs turned to the side, but I liked the top of her body. And in order to merge the two, I liquefied her, showing the background. That way I can match the original to the new. So I used Clarissa's top half, and I used Clarissa's original bottom half. So her body's a little bit twisted up, but in the end it still looked okay. I had to move a couple of things around with the Liquify tool, but I think it worked out nicely. Fixing her corset there for a better fit. Okay, I use some of these red marks you'll see to circle up things that so that I can remember to go back and do those. So there's Clarissa's face is circled. We have a guy all the way on the left. His arm was a little bit, what's the best way to say this? Hail Hitler is kind of the only way I can describe it. So I needed to find one that didn't really look that way. It took a few tries. That first arm I don't think was gonna work. And plus it was intersecting the girl, her hand there, so I had to recreate her hand. And now here we go. I think this pose is a little bit better, and we also had to recreate we had to fix up the balloon where his hand was in front of the balloon. Checking details, going over things, brightening her teeth, Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to continue to refine, and I use a lot of individual curves in different locations. Oh, here I am fixing Anne's pants. She was wearing these beautiful tight pants, but the way that they were, you know, once you're dancing around and moving around, it can shift a bit. So you just want to pull up her crotch a little, get rid of those wrinkles there, make it look like it fits better. This was right before Airpushers went out to Burning Man in August. So this was good because the entire crew got to do kind of a dry run of putting up the balloon for their airship. And I had them do it in their outfits, so that added to their difficulty. But okay, here we are, the final image. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little bit tutorial there, and give you a little background about how I think through an image. Remember to click like and subscribe if this is the kind of content you want to see. Until next time.